In the previous chapter, we saw Danking Shen unleash his overwhelming power, shaking the heavens and earth. His aura was so immense that it made the skies tremble and filled everyone with fear. Zhuo Fan revealed that Danking Shen had reached the Genesis stage, the peak of the mortal domain, where one could connect with the world's power and destroy everything around them. This was the level where cultivators began breaking free from mortality, heading toward the Spirit King stage. Let's begin the chapter. Danking Shen's power surged, covering the entire realm, making it tremble. The biting winds whipped past the exalted double dragons, their faces growing grave as they confronted this immense force. Hundreds of years had passed, and Danking Shen had, of course, grown incredibly powerful, so much so that they were now having doubts about fighting him, even together. The people watching the screen were tense, some even excited, at the sight of a scene that felt like the prelude to total destruction. 3 Genesis stage experts were about to clash. This was a fight that happened only once in a blue moon. "Sheng, before we fight," exalted Bai Mei began, "I want to ask you something." Danking Shen grumbled something before finally saying, "Say it. After all these years, why have you come for the sword now? Did you meet someone strong, or do you just want to rule some place? Give me a reason." Exalted Heiran looked straight at him, also waiting for an answer. Danking Shen squinted, then said, "Must I say it?" "It's fine either way, since you're no longer our disciple." Exalted Bai Mei spoke coldly. "You have no reason to explain yourself to us." Exalted Heiran stared hard at Danking Shen. "We must have taught you that, regardless of what you do, you should always have a reason for doing it, even if it's wrong. That way, at least you won't feel lost." As the Exalted spoke, Danking Shen felt a particular mood come over him. They were clearly asking if he still saw them as his masters at his very core. They were testing his intentions for taking the sword, and whether he was worthy of inheriting it. Danking Shen took a deep breath as he pondered. "To be honest, 3 years from now I will have a life-and-death fight with the old freak from the central area. I'm sure that if I have the help of the Western Land's treasure, the vaulting sword, I will win. Central Area's Sword Star Empire's invincible sword?" Exalted Bai Mei gasped in disbelief. "How did you end up messing with him? You're even having a life-and-death battle? Are you crazy?" Exalted Heiran shook all over, his fists clenched tight, as he cursed. "Rotten brat, you must be so damn cocky to think that being called the best in the Western Lands means you're the king of the world. You think that that freak is someone you can toy with? Why do you think the 4 areas joined hands to resist the central area, yet we're still at a disadvantage?" Danking Shen only took a long breath and made up his mind. Exalted Bai Mei saw his determination and asked, "Sheng, you're not impulsive, and should know when to step back. Why, a man's gotta do what a man's gotta do." Danking Shen held his head high as he sighed. "What was it that I told Exalted before I left the Western Lands? That I had finally found my path." The two nodded. "Peace on this world." "Yes, that is my path. That is her path." Danking Shen's eyes flashed. "It was both of our hopes to create a better world. Ever since she died, I have gone crazy and have fallen into despair. But then I thought to myself, rather than go mad from the pain and hatred, it would be better to achieve this dream she wanted to see. That's why, for the past centuries, I have created such a place, a paradise between areas." Alas, nothing good lasts forever. My strength keeps all those petty thieves away. But I have been in constant conflict with the Central Area's Sword Star Empire's expansion, always wanting to wage war. I used to think that no matter how strong it was, my slice of heaven was insignificant, that they would at least talk with me on account of being a Genesis stage expert. Yet I did not expect that old freak to come straight for me and make a bet. If I lose, my land will be razed to the ground. Hundreds of years gone. The Exalted picked up on his problem and said, And the old monster is still coming for you? Ha ha ha, that's right. Masters are the wisest. Danking Shen sighed. My place is only the size of a small empire. It has no riches and no grudge with anyone. How could happy, normal people incite the wrath of others? How could they get the great Sword Star Empire to come after them, unless that old bag of bones? Danking Shen's voice trailed off, switching to sending words instead. The Exalted sported an astonished look. Danking Shen sighed. The old guy has been in seclusion for hundreds of years, and now that he's come out and is far stronger, he wants to go big. The 4 lands are in danger, and I hope masters will be ready. By fortune, I saw that this time's Double Dragon gathering has some good seeds that might give the Western lands some hope. The Exalted nodded and sighed. But then Exalted Hay ran, raised an eyebrow. I just don't know if I should give you the sword or not anymore. Ha ha ha, yeah, it's quite the conundrum. Without the sword, I'll lose for sure. But if you do give it to me, maybe it will become the weapon by which the Western lands would run with blood. I'd be just as conflicted by this if I were masters. Danking Shen chuckled, then his power exploded once more. Since that's the case, just like the old agreement, strength will determine the victor. The Exalted nodded and said, Strength it is. The 2 Exalted were showing off their strength as well, their dragon power tracing the lands and skies as it clashed with Danking Shen's fierce sword waves. With loud noises, the space began to shake from the impact, about to crack under their power. The audience watched agape. Are these the strongest experts in the world? This is outstanding. If they fight, the world might be ruined. This was what everyone thought. Even if exaggerated, they knew a saying. The top of mortal domain are like gods. Only Zhuo Fan eased a breath. Fight, don't talk, and don't solve the riddle of the sacred weapon. Though it was too soon to celebrate, it all came down to how they fought, and if they would settle this problem instead. So Zhuo Fan's eyes were fixed on the fight. Double Dragon art, Double Dragon emergence. The Exalted Double Dragons met their palms and shouted. Black and white powers came out as they spun on each other, just like a yin-yang symbol. The world was filled with a majestic power as it gathered around them in the form of a black and white roaring dragon. They then pushed out their palms and unleashed the dragon upon Danking Shen. The mighty force kept pushing him back. Danking Shen pointed his finger at the skies, and a draconic roar sounded. A dragon revolved high above around his finger, as if it was climbing the heavens. The immense sword energy had reached its peak and gathered on his finger, forming an illusory vaulting sword. The huge dragon roamed on this sword as it kept roaring. Under all of this immense power, the skies, the earth, everything was constantly shaking. Dragon-cleaving art, Danking Shen shouted and brought his sword down upon the black and white dragon. The explosion from the impact was monumental. The skies dimmed, while the land around the sacred mine was leveled and barren. It went on for hundreds of miles, leaving in its wake an apocalypse. The crowd was overwhelmed. Just one blow from a Genesis stage expert unleashed such deadly power. Zhuo Fan and Ye Lin's fight was astonishing in its own right, but not as frightening as this. They still had a way to go before they could burn the world to cinders. Everyone paled after seeing such might for the first time. No wonder Danking Shen could come and go in the Western lands 10 sects as he wished. One snap of his fingers can erase a sect.